It's more than just a timeline, though. We're going to uncover how humans went from just another species to the planet's dominant force, and maybe uncover some uncomfortable truths about the costs along the way.
Okay, so Harari, he doesn't waste any time. He jumps right in, reminding us that humans were around for a long time before history books ever came about.
Right?
2.5 million years just blending in with the rest of the wild kingdom.
Yeah.
Not exactly the top dogs we are now.
It's true. And for a big chunk of that time, humans weren't anything special. We were just one species in a world teeming with life. But around 70,000 years ago, something clicked. It wasn't weapons or tools as you might expect, but something much more basic.
Mm.
Cooking.
Wait, hold up. I love a good barbecue as much as the next person, but I never thought of cooking as some revolutionary act.
You see, cooking isn't just about making food tastier. It's about efficiency. Cooked food is easier to digest, meaning our ancestors could get more energy with less effort.
And that extra energy went straight to our heads, literally. Harari talks about how shorter intestines, thanks to this cooked food diet, freed up all this energy that fueled the growth of our brains.
And this seemingly simple change in our diet might be the reason we're even having this conversation today. It allowed us to develop complex language, abstract thought. It's mind-boggling when you think about it.
Yeah, my mind is officially boggled. But it wasn't all about bigger brains, right? Harari talks about this cognitive revolution being the real turning point. What exactly is that?
It's the ability to believe in things that don't physically exist. Think. Nations, religions, money, corporations, they exist because we all agree they do. These are collective myths, stories we tell ourselves that have incredible power over us.
So our ability to believe in these myths, whether it's democracy or the value of a dollar, that's what allowed us to cooperate on a massive scale, to build pyramids and launch rockets.
Exactly. It's what sets us apart from every other species on Earth. But like any powerful tool, it has a flip side. What happens when those beliefs are used to exploit, to control?
Okay, now that's a bit unnerving. But before we go full dystopian, Harari brings up this amazing archaeological site in Russia, the Sungir burial site.
Ah, yes. The graves there offer a fascinating glimpse into the lives of these early humans about 30,000 years ago.
And this one grave belonging to a 50-year-old man, it was practically overflowing with artifacts. Ivory beads, a hat adorned with fox teeth, bracelets. It's like something out of Indiana Jones.
What's remarkable is that other graves at the same site were far less elaborate. Archaeologists estimate over 10,000 ivory beads were found on just 2 children buried there. It suggests that even back then, in these hunter-gatherer societies, some form of social hierarchy existed.
Wait a minute. So inequality isn't just a modern problem. It's been around since the Stone Age.
That's what the evidence suggests. Of course, we can only interpret these findings through our modern lens. It's definitely something to ponder.
It is. So we've got these early humans with their big brains, their powerful myths, and it seems maybe even their own versions of inequality. What comes next in this evolutionary saga?
Well, the next chapter takes a bit of a dark turn. We see the impact of these changes on the rest of the planet. And let's just say, it's not always a happy ending for our fellow Earthlings. That's right, Harari doesn't shy away from some of the less glamorous consequences of human evolution. He points to the extinction of megafauna, those giant creatures that roamed the Earth thousands of years ago. Think woolly mammoths, giant sloths, saber-toothed cats. Many of them vanished not long after Sapiens showed up.
Megafauna, that's a new one. Is that like a supersized prehistoric zoo?
Exactly. These were massive animals, much larger than their modern counterparts. And while there's no single smoking gun, the timing of their disappearance coinciding with the spread of Sapiens is pretty hard to ignore.
So not just smarter, but maybe deadlier too. Makes you wonder if all our fancy progress comes at a price.
That's the luxury trap Harari talks about. We tend to think of progress as things getting easier, more comfortable. But that's not always the case. Think about something as simple as email.
Okay, I think I see where you're going with this.
Before email, we had snail mail. Slow, yes, but it also meant people had more realistic expectations. Now we're expected to respond instantly, be available 24/7. We've traded physical burdens for psychological ones.
The price of progress, I guess.
Yeah,
But this pattern, it goes beyond just email, doesn't it? It feels like a recurring theme throughout history.
absolutely. And it's especially evident in the rise of empires.
Right. Societies get more complex, people start living closer together, and boom, you've got these massive empires popping up. Harari mentions Çatalhöyük, this bustling city in modern-day Turkey back in 7000 BC. 10,000 people, can you imagine?
A remarkable feat for the time. And that's just the beginning. A few thousand years later, you have the first Egyptian kingdom, uniting the entire Nile Valley under one ruler. Then there's Sargon the Great, who around 2300 BC established the Akkadian Empire, the first empire in Mesopotamia. He ruled over 1 million subjects and commanded a standing army.
Empires on an epic scale. But why are they so important for us to understand?
Empires represent a whole new level of social and political organization. They require sophisticated systems of administration, communication, and law. And that need for order and control is where we start to see written laws emerge. One of the earliest examples is Hammurabi's Code, dating back to ancient Babylon around 1750 BC.
So this was like the first rule book for an empire.
In a way, yes. It covered everything from trade disputes to family matters to criminal offenses with specific punishments for each. And it's fascinating to compare Hammurabi's Code, which emphasizes hierarchy and a strict social order, to something like the American Declaration of Independence written thousands of years later.
Two very different visions of how society should work, for sure. One all about order and the other about freedom.
Exactly. And yet both claim to be based on universal principles, on timeless truths. It makes you question, what is truth? Is it absolute, or is it shaped by the specific historical and cultural context in which we live?
That's a big question for a Tuesday afternoon, but I'm hooked. So we've got empires on the rise, written laws emerging, and these fundamental questions about truth and power starting to surface. What happens next?
Well, next comes the really exciting part, the development of writing as a tool for not just recording laws, but also for controlling information, for shaping narratives, for wielding power.
Now, that sounds right up my alley. Tell me more.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're picking up with the power of the written word. It's easy to think of writing as just for storytelling, but you're saying it was much more than that.
Oh, absolutely. Writing becomes this tool not just for recording information, but for controlling it, for building entire systems of power. Think about those ancient Mesopotamian scribes meticulously etching tax records and grain transactions onto clay tablets.
Not exactly the Great Gatsby, but I get your point.
Those tablets, as mundane as they seem, represent a pivotal shift. They tell us that writing was essential for managing increasingly complex societies. And as those societies evolved, so did their systems of writing.
It's like writing itself was evolving alongside us becoming more sophisticated to keep pace with our growing ambitions.
That's a great way to put it. And it makes you wonder, have we become so reliant on writing, on our intricate systems of language and code, that it's now shaping us? Are we mastering it, or is it mastering us?
Whoa, that's a bit of a mind bend. And speaking of complex systems, Harari spends a good chunk of Sapiens exploring the evolution of another powerful force, money.
Ah, yes, money. The ultimate symbol of human trust and ambition wrapped up in a neat little package.
Or the root of all evil, depending on who you ask.
Harari argues that money, at its core, is a system of mutual trust. We might hoard gold or covet diamonds, but their value is ultimately based on shared belief. He uses the example of Sumerian barley money, which, as the name suggests, was literally standardized units of barley.
Hold on, so instead of coins or bills they were trading, grain.
Precisely. Imagine carrying sacks of barley to the market. Not exactly convenient. So they developed a system of standardized units, kind of like ancient IOUs for grain, that everyone agreed had value. It worked because they trusted the system.
That's wild, but it makes sense. Even today, our money isn't really about the physical bills or coins. It's about the trust we place in the system and the government backing it.
And that trust can be a fragile thing. Which brings us to another fascinating story Harari tells. The rise and fall of the Dutch East India Company, or VOC.
Speaking of trust and ambition on a grand scale, this was a company that ended up conquering vast territories in Asia, right?
It's hard to imagine today, but back in the 17th century, the VOC was a force to be reckoned with. They had their own armies, waged wars, established colonies, all in the name of profit.
And it was all perfectly legal at the time? That blows my mind.
It highlights just how much our world has changed. But it also underscores a recurring theme in Harari's work, the often uncomfortable relationship between power, progress, and human ambition.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here. We've journeyed from the dawn of humanity to the age of empires, from the invention of writing to the rise of global trade. What's the grand takeaway?
Well, Harari argues that our modern world, with all its complexities, is a direct result of those key revolutions in human history. The cognitive revolution, the agricultural revolution, the scientific revolution. They've all shaped who we are today.
And now we're on the cusp of new revolutions, artificial intelligence, genetic engineering. It makes you wonder where we're headed next.
That's the beauty of it all, isn't it? History doesn't offer a roadmap, but it does provide perspective. It reminds us that change is inevitable, that progress isn't always linear, and that the choices we make today will shape the world of tomorrow.
So what can we do with all this knowledge? If history is any indication, we're capable of both great and terrible things.
The future is unwritten. It is up to us to learn from the past, to grapple with its complexities, and to make choices that reflect our shared humanity.
Well said. I think we'll leave it there for today. It's been an incredible journey through 70,000 years of human history. And who knows, maybe someday, thousands of years from now, someone will be diving deep into our story, trying to make sense of it all. Thanks for joining us for this epic deep dive into Yuval Noah Harari's Sapiens. Until next time.